This podcast is brought to you by Primary Arms. Primary Arms seeks to provide the best shopping experience for everything firearms. With over 13,000 products from over 400 top brands, Primary Arms carries a complete selection of rifles, handguns, firearms parts, shooting gear, apparel, and more. Every order comes with a commitment to superior service, backed by fast shipping and an expert support team. Primary Arms, serving freedom since 2008. Find out more at frn.deals/PA. Welcome to the AR-15 podcast. This show is for you if you just bought your first rifle or if you've been building them for years. There is something we can all do to take our black rifles to the next level. My name is Nick Dooley, and I am joined as always by my co-host Tyler Brockle.
Hey everybody.
And we're missing Garth because he had to leave for a fire call right as we were starting to record. So the cost of service, I guess.
Yep.
So how are we doing? How are we doing this week, Tyler?
Well, pretty good. Got a few little chores out of the way. Had to finally got the Wilson Combat Lower on my M17 that you let me borrow and tried it out, and I liked it. Great for I think more of like a practical use gun, but it's still kind of small for my big ass go-go gadget fingers. So I still think I'll keep looking for something a little bit bigger, but kind of has that nice form and grip that the Wilson Combat Lowers had. I did go in and I did zero in my new SP5. And that was an absolute blast. I put a Silencer Co. Omega 9K on the front and kind of tested it with and without the suppressor on it. I got one of their muzzle brakes and shot really, really well. Super smooth. I really like the roller delayed blowback. I got a kind of shoot it alongside. I got a MPX that I want to, shoot it side by side, see if I can really see a difference or whatnot. But that's about all I did this week in terms of firearms. So, how about yourself? Anything fun happening down in your neck of the woods?
Nothing fun for me. The most exciting thing that I've had in the last week was a new pair of, I guess they'd be tactical shoes. But yeah, I am trying out the Ultima, what do they call them, Maritime Assault shoe.
Oh yeah.
What they are is they are tactical Chuck Taylors. That's
okay. Right on.
But no, so breaking them in on some ruck marching and hikes around here, just stuff like that, seeing how I like them. And other than that, not a lot in the world of guns and stuff. That's going to change here in a couple months, and then I'll have all kinds of stuff to talk about.
Nice.
And yeah, so
I do. I guess the other thing, I do have the Mac coming up next week, which is a competition for the military. So I'm looking forward to that. So like I've said on some social media posts, not only is it nice to get free ammo, it's nice to get paid to shoot. So those are always a major win in my book. But for that reason, I actually probably won't be on next week because that competition's going Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Fair enough. We will make that work. And yeah, we'll just keep right on pushing with everything through that. So, since you were talking about competition, that kind of leads into the topic we were going to talk about tonight.
Absolutely.
And competition optics.
Yeah. So
I can speak a little bit to the Mac, not the one you're going to, because I generally shoot a Mac in a different region, which Mac, for anyone who doesn't realize, is Master at Arms competition. And that is a Army and Air Force generally competition for, see who's the best shooter. So, and with that, you would see two people, or well, there's just 3 sighting systems people would use there. And with COVID shutting everything down a couple of years ago, they didn't even have nationals. So we, shot the Mac and then didn't go anywhere, didn't go down to shoot nationals. And then I have been off doing other things instead of home to do that. So I didn't get to shoot them for last year or this year. But the three sighting systems you'd see were we used to be the traditional iron sights, the good old M16A2.
Mm-hmm. And you still have that in their excellent competition
The
portions
EIC.
of it. So yeah, you don't do, the military is not done away with open sights by any means, even though a lot of weapons nowadays will either have your aim points or your ACOGs on them.
Yep, the M68 CCO aim point, which I am of split minds on, because yes, those things are built like a tank and super solid, but I have also seen more of those screwed up than probably any other optic on the planet.
Well, they're big for a red dot. Don't get me wrong. I like them. I'd love to have one. I do not have one, but the only reason I don't is because I think there are smaller, lighter options that achieve the same thing. But I do agree. Yes, it is built like a brick shithouse.
Oh, that's the only red dot I've ever seen multiple examples of where they put the wrong worm gear in the adjustment.
Well, they've probably made enough of them that the statistical pool to draw from is significantly larger than your average optics company.
Yeah,
But,
that, and of course it's done to military specifications.
yeah, that too.
And then of course the venerable ACOG.
Mm-hmm.
The 3-power prism optic that is almost indestructible.
Yep.
That is not the best optic in the world. It is just the best at being dropped into a room full of grunts and not winding up broken, lost, or pregnant.
That's right.
So,
yeah, it's nice. I've never up until like the last couple of years, I haven't really used one because I'm always on the M9 or the M17. But I've started to use it considerably more the last couple of years. I just kind of grab a gun and go on the range during range qual and just do it for shits and giggles. But I've always debated buying one. I do like it, but at the same time, I do not like having no magnification. So if at the very least I would want an ACOG with magnification, with a RMR attachment on it. I wouldn't want just a solid 4 or 3 times magnification and that's it. I would want to pair something with it, and that's both for like a combat and duty setting and competition as well, because a lot of competitions out there, regardless of whether it's 3-gun or IPSC or whatever, they kind of push you in the sense that they have targets that are incredibly close, and then they have targets that are really, really far away, all on the same lane. And so you really need to kind of understand your holdovers, understand your height over bore kind of stuff for the really close shots. And yeah, I just would want something that's a little bit more flexible in terms of what I can do depending on the distance to the target, which I'll kind of elaborate a little bit more on once we get to that point. But the only downside that I really don't like about the ACOGs is just they have really poor eye relief, I think, compared to other optics out there.
So in a callback to another episode, you went back to our last episode with Swamp Fox.
Mm-hmm.
You would find out the reason why the ACOG eye relief is so terrible. Because
yeah, that's right. We did talk about that, didn't we?
Yep, Mike from Swamp Fox came through and gave the reason for that. So I'm not going to tell anyone the reason now. You have to go back and find it. But it is there, and we do talk about why it is that the ACOG has a very specific eye relief.
Yep. So in terms of just general competition, Julie, because I know you kind of shoot a lot of different stuff. I do too, probably not as much as you, but you just want to pick a certain competition and kind of go over what optics we like and why.
Yep. So, I mean, I shoot anything that's around. I trap league, sporting clays, USPSA, 3-gun, anything I can get my hands on that's shooting competition, shooting related, I generally will shoot,
Hmm.
and especially the action sports. So I love action shooting, and I do some long range stuff as well, or I dabbled in it for a while and still play with it. I've got ARs built just for shooting long range,
Hmm.
but so my standard setup when I go to like a 3-gun or a USPSA event, because with going to USPSA now they have the PCC divisions, and it's I will have generally, again, depending which one I'm shooting, which now I've made a transition almost entirely to the SIG platform for my pistols from Berettas. Much like the Army, I made the transition over strangely at almost the same time for some reason.
Yeah. Huh.
And but I have, well, I had two different slides for the same gun. I had one that was just a basic 3-dot night sight, and then I would, for depending which class I was shooting, I would shuck that off and then just run a RMR on it. Now
Hmm.
an RMR on a 9 millimeter, I sight that in at about 15 yards and call that good.
Yep, that's same thing I do as well. I'm actually running the Romeo One Pro, and more so that is just because that was just what goes on the N17, right? Like
That's
the
what fits the cut.
Leopold. Yep, yeah, the Leopold Delta Point Pro was what won the Army contract, and so here we have a SIG gun with a Leopold footprint on it. And then they modified the Romeo One to the Romeo One Pro, and so I just kind of I wanted a larger um, viewing aperture for competition, right? So like this gun is more of a competition slash combat style gun, so I'm not really concerned about concealing it. So the Romeo One Pro is a very large optic. It's got a very wide field of view, and so it's not really a everyday carry kind of thing. I'm sure some people do it and can get away with it. That's fine. I'm not saying that, but I definitely for a competition like a larger pistol optic. And that is one of my favorites. And I went with that again just because of the footprint. The other one that I've tried that I think I like better, but it just I originally had it on my 320 was the Trigicon SRO, and I believe that one is a 30 or 32 millimeter viewing aperture, and it's a complete circle. And I find that with pistol optics, that if I have a round aperture as opposed to these like square with an arch that the RMR and like the Delta Point Pro and the Sig Romeo One have. My eye tends to gravitate towards the center easier, just because you have a dot and you're trying to put it just concentrically perfect in the center of that circle. So I do really like the Trigicon SRO. The only thing I didn't like about it was I had to use a adapter plate on my pistol in order for it to mount to it. And the Trigicon SRO, its base plate is cut in such a way that it's meant to sit down into the slide of a pistol, because I originally had it on a Glock 17 and so, or sorry, a Glock 34. And so that sat a lot lower than it did on my 320, and ended up taking it off because my just height over board, like I could really tell the difference, because it was like maybe a quarter of an inch difference, and I did not like it. So I guess for pistols, my ideal one would be the Trigicon SRO. I know Sig makes like the Romeo 3 and the Romeo 3 Max, which I think get all the way up to 35 millimeter aperture. And again, they're a round aperture. So I think they would be a good second. And then obviously, I was very happy with my Romeo One Pro, but I pretty much got that because it matched up with the gun. But those would be my top three for pistols.
Yep, and I run, of course, I have a handful of different optics much like everyone else does because, well, reasons. And I have an RMR mounted to one of my 320s because it did not take the specific uh, delta point thread pitch because it was just an X carry slide. So I have an RMR mounted to that because they are indestructible. I have a Swamp Fox Justice that I really like, and that has a larger viewing area as well. I think that one's at, I want to say 27 millimeters or something like that of viewing area. And those are really the two that I've ran with. I am one of the oddities where I have shot that SRO, and it's a fine optic, but it's just definitely not for me. The other one that I shoot is actually a Sig Romeo 0.
Oh, that's really small.
Yeah, that's on my 365 XL. And
yeah, well, that makes sense, right? I mean, that was designed for those smaller ones, and I know there are a lot of there is a 365 specific competition, so I think it's great if you do use that because you're train as you fight kind of thing, because that's the type of optic you are going to have on those smaller handguns.
Yep, there's a handful of different they call them bug gun shootouts and things like that, but no, it's fun, and I just really that is probably the easiest one that I've found for just natural point of aim. Was that 365 with the Romeo 0 for just where my eye automatically went to the red dot instead of the sights.
Sure.
And then I have a Glock 19. Yeah, I guess it is in a Glock frame again now, but that has just a brown L slide on it that I built out of random parts.
Oh, nice.
And again, it was the fine stuff laying in my basement and put a gun together.
Sure.
And that one has a has an RMR on it as well. But I am super excited to try out the new sights from a company called Night Vision, and they kind of released these recently, and I'd ordered them last month. I ordered 3 sets of them, but they're a red dot optimized iron sight.
Interesting.
And the reason why I kind of ordered them was they do a bottom third co-witness. So think of it like running an EOTech with standard sights where you have the bottom third co-witness, but it does that with your red dot on a handgun. So they're not as high as suppressor height, but they're not hiding below it.
Okay, right on.
And I ordered those before I found out Primary Arms had them, so I could use the discount code. So I'd ordered them. But my long story about that was when I first started shooting a pistol with a red dot on it, I had that Glock and I did not put any sights on it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, train yourself to, or force yourself to use the red dot without
any sights. And then it was after I figured out how to do that, then I, put it on another gun that had sights as well. And now I have that working, and so
right on. All right, well, pistols aside, let's get into the bread and butter. What do you think about
what do you run on your PCC?
Yeah, PCC. So I think I'm on the same exact boat with Garth, because I think we both have the exact same setup, but I'm rocking a 16-inch SIG MPX with the Swamp Fox blade. So in general, I like etched reticles in my sights, right? At first I started off being a red dot guy. Now I've pretty much transitioned over to LPVOs and optics with etched sights. So the Swamp Fox blade is really cost effective. I can't remember what it was, like somewhere between 250 and 350 bucks. It's no magnification, etched reticle, and it already has the reticle already has compensation built into it, specifically for it's intended for PCCs, so that you zero, I believe it was 25 yards, and then it actually has your holdovers for uh, 15, 10, and 5. So it's pretty slick. So when you're doing that close in competition, and when I do a PCC
Yep.
competition, I really have not seen one out past 100 yards, and that just might be because of where I'm at and the bays that are available. But I do a lot more close quarters shooting than I do the long distance shooting with the PCCs. So my favorite is the Swamp Fox blade, just because of that, and then the great price on top of it.
Yep. And I think they called that like they call it the bullet rise reticle because it's. I read because I actually read the manual that comes with it
Yeah.
because we've well determined that I enjoy reading things that are dry for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very similar to another optic that I know we both like with an EOTech where it has that 65 MOA crosshair or
Yep.
circle rather,
Absolutely.
and the 65 MOA circle. It's the same thing where it's like, okay, if you dial it in so center on your reticle, that dot in the center, it's, oh well, this will be 7 inches, or like a 7 yard shot. If it's at the top, you
Mm-hmm.
aim here because your bullet's still going to be going up. So you have to one get into like you called it height over bore. I typically refer to it as mechanical offset.
That too. Yep.
It's two ways of saying the same thing, just because it's not two laser beams coming out.
Right. Right. Yeah, and it's funny because, man, this was years and years ago, but I went a long time thinking that, like, the EOTech reticles, for example, the 68 MOA dot with the red dot in the center, and then the 4 tick marks of the 12, 3, 9, and 6, that it was a look, it was a aesthetics thing. And then I took the time to actually go and read the manual, watched a few YouTube videos on it. There's a lot of thought that has gone into those reticles, um, more so from a combat sense, but everything from the combat sense absolutely applies in competition, especially these action sports competitions. So I do have an EOTech EXPS 3 on my 8-inch MPX. I use them more for a combat sight on more of my combat guns. But looks like we lost Dooley. Well, get back on my soapbox about EOTechs then. So I really like the EOTechs in a combat sense, and yeah, they got great viewing area. It's very wide. There's not a lot of border around the optic itself, so you don't have a lot of obstructions. So I think the EOTechs are a very good a very good optic if you wanted to use them for competition shooting. And I did for a while. I actually did the hybrid setup where I had a 3 times magnifier with it, and I did a few 3-gun competitions with that. I had that on an AR-15 as opposed to a pistol caliber carbine. And I will save that topic here in a little bit when I get into the 3-gun portion of this. But as far as PCCs go, you can't go wrong with the EOTechs. And hey, you're back. Good deal.
I am. Apparently, we had a lightning strike issue close because we lost power here.
But yeah, I was just saying the EOTechs. I still think they are a very good option for PCC stuff. I still use them for more of a combat setup, and I gravitate towards the Swamp Fox blade specifically for the benefits that it offers with its unique reticle. But I did used to run the EOTech with the magnifier, but I did that on my 5.56 for 3-gun, and I'll kind of get into that here next when we get to that. But yeah, my number one is just that Swamp Fox blade for the PCC style stuff.
Yeah, and I've never been able to hold on to a blade long enough to run it in any competitions because I always end up selling it to a customer almost immediately. But I run I run a red dot on my PCC, and I had I've had 3 different red dots now that I run on them.
Hmm.
I ran a oh god, it was just a shitty little or I bought a refurbished Primary Arms micro red dot,
Okay.
and it was a refurb one, so I think I paid $50 for it, 50 or $60.
Hmm.
It's generally $130, something like that.
Sure.
And I ran that for 4 or 5 years, just beating the crap out of it
Hmm.
because it was, if it dies, it dies. And then I went from that because it finally completely died out. And the good thing about it was the rifle I was shooting had backup irons that I could run in place.
Yep.
So I was running that, and I could finish my matches. And then I got a Swamp Fox Liberator
Yep.
2, Swamp
Yep.
Fox Liberator 2, because I have a Liberator 1 on that dirty communist rifle,
Ugh.
and then I have a Liberator 2 on my PCC now, and then the other one that I have is a Trijicon MRO.
Okay. I've never had one of those, but I do like them. I've looked through them before.
Yep, and like the biggest problem I have sometimes with some of the Trijicon products is well, it's like they call it the fishbowl effect, where everything kind of looks blue because of the coatings that they put on.
Sure.
And it's just like it happens to be the lens coatings that a lot of people use will have a little bit of a tint to it. And
Do you
I
do you
I
find an issue with that? Because I really don't. Like I don't I don't necessarily like it, but I don't really think it throws me off at all.
I have other ones that I like more for the clear or for the without having the coloration of the glass,
Hmm.
and that does a lot more to me. It's just one of those like the way my brain works. It like makes my it pause a little bit because of the color. I don't have a good reason why other than it's something I notice.
Sure.
And so I've run those, and with a red dot on, so while it's not an AR, but with just a cheap small micro red dot, or not the micro red dot pistol slide, but the small, like, I forget what class they're, 22 millimeter lens, like the
Yep.
standard, kind of the standard small red dot size. I've got videos of me shooting steel plates at 300 yards with them,
Sure. Yep.
and that's just because if you have a known size target, then you just go, all right, yep, we're here, and
Yeah.
it's okay. Yep, I hit 3 out of 5 times at 300. I'm going to count that as a win today.
Sure. Yeah, I used to be a huge red dot guy, right? And I just liked simple, I liked clean, and I liked really fine red dots because here I'm thinking, hey, this is competition. We want to be as accurate as possible. And what I've kind of found with like three gun and some of these other competitions, you can still be accurate enough because at the end of the day, what they're training is bullet in a body. As long as you get it in that A zone, you don't need a super fine red dot. I found that speed mattered a lot more. And when I was going with these, uh, I
Super
eventually got to
clean.
like, yeah, 6 MOA dots and 9 MOA dots instead of the 3 MOA dots. It was a lot better. And now, like I said, I'm at the 68 MOA. So that 68 MOA in like say an EOTech reticle, that's the size of a human torso at 25 yards. That now you still got the 3 MOA dot in the middle for that really fine stuff, but that larger donut is allows you to acquire a target a lot faster. So if you're doing a 3-gun stage at 5 to 100 yards, perfect. That 68 MOA donut is going to be phenomenal. It's going to get you there a lot faster than, say, a 3 MOA dot. But you still have that 3.0 MOA dot, when you start reaching out a little bit to the 200-300 yard stages, which I have not been on a lot of those. But yeah, so that's the other thing about the reticles. And then just one other thing to know about EOTechs, right? It's kind of interesting. I've seen a lot of people complain about, oh, the EOTech reticle is fuzzy. Well, if you focus on the reticle, yes, it is fuzzy. You're not supposed to focus on the reticle. You're supposed to focus on the target. And when you focus on the target, it brings the reticle into view. So just one annotation there. And then, of course, speaking of, fuzzy reticles, if you have an etched reticle, that is another advantage. They can still light up. You can get them in red. You can get them in green. If the battery dies, they still say black because they're etched into the glass. But you have a much crisper, finer outer edges of the reticle itself. So, and then, of course, Dooley, you can talk about the stigmatism stuff and the benefits there.
Yep.
But
I was gonna say that's one where I run into a problem with them is they all kind of look like Africa. Is what you go through, and it's okay up, and then you get it to where it's okay up. This is a fine pinprick. Well, then it's so dim that no one can see it. So I kind of did the same thing and went, oh wait, for speed, I just jack the brightness all the way up on them and run them way brighter than they need to be.
Right. Yep.
And then it turns into this big wash. And do the same thing. And like you were saying, that is one major benefit of the prism optics is they are far better for someone with an astigmatism.
Yes.
And that allows you to have that crisp image, and then you can light it up just enough to see it so it'll stand out more from the background.
Yep.
I will say, like, we live in the good old days and in the golden era of firearms and accessories right now, because for around $100 you can get a decent red dot.
Yeah.
Like I haven't shot them a lot, but like they have a SIG MSR that's, I think PSA had them on sale for $60.
Oh,
with a mount. And look, I remember the first red dot I bought. The first red dot I bought was somewhere, probably 15 years ago. And it had such finicky adjustments because it was, you didn't have a bunch of red dots on the market. You either shelled out the coin for a EOTech or an aim point, or you bought whatever was at Walmart.
Yep.
And went, well, this thing's a pile of crap, and you threw it away. and then you went on to something else. Like you would go on to what is probably, we can switch gears and just roll right into the next kind of phase of competition, talking about 3-gun, because my first 3-gun optic was a Vortex Viper 1-4 PST.
That's a pretty solid one. Yeah.
And that was like the beginning and one of the first widely available of the LPVOs. And LPVO is low power, or low power variable
optic.
Yeah. And that was the first one I had, was a Vortex Viper 1-4. And I remember because I was so pissed because I had gone through and looked at everything, and I think I got it in 2013 or 14. And like I got it, and I got my new scope, and I was like, oh yeah, man, this thing's awesome. I wish they had a 1-6. And I got it, and I had it in my hands. And like 2 weeks later, they announced the very first Vortex Strike Eagle.
Yep.
1-6.
And then you would have bought that, and you wish you would have had a 1x8. And oh shit, look at what's now. We're on one. We're long past 1x8, and we're on 1x10s, and it's still going.
Yep.
So
well, and that's so I that was my very first 3-gun optic was one of those, and then I moved on to another. I did get the 1-8 Strike Eagle,
mm-hmm.
and then I have a 1-8 power first focal plane from Right On Optics, which is my least favorite LPVO I own, even though it's a first focal plane and was far and away the most expensive.
Right. Yep.
Just the eye relief on it is kind of buggy to me, and it gets a lot of distortion around the edges. But then
is that what you're still running? Then is that Vortex 1x4?
No, I have made the switch completely over now. That sits on an old 20-inch rifle that is, just kind of does whatever. I've done a lot of stuff with that gun, and it's just kind of one of the old reliables that's laying around. But no, so I have my backup competition rifle used to be my main competition rifle, and that has a 1-8 Strike Eagle on top of it.
Okay. Yep.
And then last year, I finished out and was building and running a different one for comp, and that one is another 16-inch gun, but it has my 1-10 Arrowhead from Swamp Fox.
Okay. Right on.
And I love that optic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably going to buy another one to put it on in place of that 1-8 I have on the 308.
Okay, right on.
Just in case I wanted to get back into running He-Man class.
Sure.
So,
how far out does that go, though?
What's that?
Like when you like your He-Man classes, or your like when you're doing 3-gun, how far to the stages that you go to? How far out have they been?
The furthest I've shot is I have had a 300-yard shot at them before.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that I was going to sign up to go shoot zombies in the Heartland, and they had stages that ran out to 600.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, beyond that, like I just really like that 1-10 optic, even though most of the time I have it on 1 or 2.
Right. Yep. I guess, I mean, I'm in the same boat, right? Like I'm running the same stuff. I got a Vortex Strike Eagle 1x8. That's what I run for 3-gun competition. I do have a Swamp Fox 1x10 as well. I haven't mounted it on a gun yet. I'm waiting for a new one to come in, and then that's going on. But I initially, like I was saying earlier, I started with EOTech with a 3x magnifier, and really liked the EOTech. The magnifier was nice because it was just a over center detent, so I didn't have to press any type of buttons. I could just wrench it in place or out. The only thing couple things I didn't like about it was it was heavy. I found myself, for 3x magnification, to me it just did not justify the weight increase. And then of course, back in the day, you would move it off to the right because the Unity mounts hadn't come out yet. And here you are blocking all of your peripheral vision on the right side. So because of those reasons, I ended up just nixing that setup altogether. I've never tried the Unity stuff. I do kind of like the idea of it just going down, but at the same time, I think the weight problem still exists. And of course, you're increasing the height over bore, and that kind of messes with your trajectories and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, my opinion was I would prefer a different method. And so then I started diving into, okay, do I go the LPVO route for competition, or do I go with like the ACOG with the set magnification and an RMR, or do I go with the Leopold? What was that weird thing the Leopold
Oh, the
come out with?
Devo. The Devo?
Yeah.
Diva?
So
The Diva? Devo?
I looked at it for the longest time. It was a slick thing because, like with the RMR, you looked up and then down into the ACOG, and with the Leopold, you just looked off to the right a little bit, and it gave you a different. And that one was a 1x6, or sorry, a six magnification. And so I kind of went back and
I thought
forth,
they
right?
had
Because
a.
then you can acquire your target with your red dot, and then just simply adjust your face a little bit, and you're magnified 6 times. And I'll be honest with you, I never actually bought either one of those setups. I ended up going with the LPVO, and I think it's just more versatile. And to Dooley's point, he really leaves it on one or two. I think most competition goers were doing like 1x6s, because 1x8 or 1x10 for some of these stages, you really don't need it. But I still think it's nice to have, like in a combat setting kind of thing. If you want to reach out and touch somebody inappropriately a little bit better, it's the way to go. But honestly, I'm either on one or two, or I'm kind of maxed all the way out when it comes to the competition shooting. But I've seen in other settings that were non-competition, I was still using, I was kind of just right in the middle, put it on 4, put it on 6, and shoot. And it was really nice. And then of course I'm rocking the Strike Eagle 1x8. It too has a etched reticle in it, and then it also has a bullet drop tree in it, and so does the Swamp Fox.
Yep,
So
they both have a.
yep, you're not guessing. I mean, you zero it at a certain distance, and I get it. Those reticles are still kind of made for a set type of ammo, which is
Well,
normally,
not all of them.
not
So,
all of them.
like when I ordered mine, I ordered it in mils, or I'm sorry, in MOA,
Yeah.
not in mils. And instead of being a BDC, I just have values in MOA going down.
Yep.
So I just compute the math in my head
Yep.
and
Yep.
know what that is for the different distances. But I'm glad you mentioned like bringing that up, because understanding how those drops and things like that work is a really big deal, especially when you get into like doing the long range stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And getting a grip on that is much like getting a grip on VZ grips, the unique features of AR grips machined from a solid block of G10. G10 is great because it's durable and doesn't get slippery when covered in mud, blood, and sweat. The 17-degree grip angle and wide variety of textures from mild to extreme, and color options available along with shorties. 1911 grip features extreme customizability, standard slim palm wells, thumb notches, safety cuts, bottom profiles, and etc. More than 25 textures and 27 colors are available. This coupon code is good for 15% off of all handgun and rifle grips, and that coupon code is AR-15 podcast. But as we move through that and back into our actual story, the thing that understanding is, like at 3-gun, it's not as important to know what like you need to know some of what your drop is, which is where that BDC reticle works great.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start to move out into the longer range world, that's where you need to start understanding, like, marry up to a system of whether it be mill or MOA, and like that could be its entire own show probably,
Oh yeah.
because mills versus MOA is odd, because the new MOA is a lot simpler for people to initially understand, and it's a finer adjustment on an optic than a mill is, because a quarter MOA is smaller than a 1/10 mill.
See, I learned on MOA, right? I know mills are so much. They're just simpler and smarter. But the problem is, I've never learned on them, so I can't
Well,
speak intelligently on it.
it's not even that I'm not even going to say that they're faster or smarter. It's so the MOA system is more like the metric system
Mm-hmm.
because it's, whatever distance that times 10 is the size of your group.
Yep.
So a one MOA group at 600 meters divided
Yards.
is 6 inches.
Yep.
Now, a mil, is a meridian, which is 3 inches or 36 inches at 1,000 yards.
Yes.
So it's all right. So it's 1/1000th is what it would work out to be, because 1,000 yards and it's 36 inches. That is, 1/1000th. So that's where you start looking at things, and they both can be very effective. So I've shot a handful of long range matches and, dabble in the long range or stuff as well, besides just shooting prairie dogs and stuff like that at range. And having the ability to use that like Christmas tree reticle, that is super confusing. And I'm sorry if I'm going to offend people on this. You probably don't need that Harris style Christmas tree reticle on your hunting rifle to shoot deer from your tree stand across the soybean field. It's Grandpa did it with a 3x9 scope or a Winchester 30-30. Yeah, it's cool and neat that you can do it, but learning how to use all of those reticles and things that go with it is very much so a science.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something where, like, I need to get better at it, because when I look through my optic, I will know, like, okay, yep, I know this is, 4 mils, or this is, and we have Garth.
Hey, made it.
I did make it.
It kind of made it.
I'm sorry. I think it'll be all it could be for the OFD.
We're on long distance competition optics right now.
Okay. Don't let me interrupt you. You go ahead, man. I'm just stepping in here.
So what are you using, Dooley? Are you using MOA or are you using milliradians?
Yes.
Okay. What's your favorite?
I have optics in both right now. I have a handful that are in MOA, and then I have a handful, and I just picked up another one that's mills, and I'm going to be making the transition to shooting in mills, mainly because the guy I'm going to be doing a lot of my long range shooting with is a mill shooter.
Okay.
So that's one where if you and a buddy are going to pick it up, whichever one you guys understand, pick that and run with it so you guys can talk to each other and spot.
Okay. Very cool.
Cool.
In terms of optics, then, brand and type, and what do you like? And
so for long range stuff, there's a lot of options out there. Like, if I had the money, I'd buy Huskama or Schmidt and Bender or stuff like that. Like, I have seen a Huskama scope pulled off a rifle, or like shoot a target, get pulled off the rifle and drive a nail into a post, get put back on the rifle, and then shoot a target again. And that is amazing. But I don't have that kind of money.
What are we talking about there for a scope?
Oh, that's stuff where you're talking like getting into that, like some of the Kales and things of that nature. You're looking at like starting prices at $5,000.
Woo! Okay. Yep. Nope.
And that's where you're looking at like the bottom end type stuff, where Like there's some of those brands that you would see and be like, "What's that? I've never heard of it." And they have 25 or like 60 power F-class scopes that are for shooting tiny groups at 1,000 meters, but are completely useless for anything else.
Sure.
And it's granted, I know that if you put a 60 power scope on the counter at some of the gun shops, there would be guys who would buy them to shoot prairie dogs at 100 yards because
why not?
Reasons.
Yeah.
And
kill that fly with a sledgehammer.
But no, so you'll see guys running some Archon. Bushnell makes some actually pretty decent. Their higher class stuff makes some actually fairly good long range stuff. Kales, as I already mentioned, Night Force is one of the best if you're looking at getting into that stuff.
And the lightest. I am very impressed with how light Night Force's scopes are. I've held a $1,400 Night Force 1x4 in one hand and a Vortex I think it was a 1x4. It might have been a 1x6, but good God, I thought I was holding a hollow tube when I was holding the Night Force.
So U.S. Optics does quality work, but I would go with Night Force. If you're looking at getting into long range, you kind of have three different tiers you're going to be looking at. Obviously in price. You have FU money, and that's Schmittenbetter and Huskamas and all that. And we're not going to talk about them because at that point you're going to pay someone to build a rifle for you, and they're going to put a scope on it and go, "This is what you shoot."
Mm-hmm.
And you just go, "Okay." But then buying Night Force or like a Leupold Mark 6, something like that. The ultra high end Leupolds and the Night Force would be that stuff. If you're going to drop a couple grand on an optic, then you come down and start looking at and this is just in price points. Not saying that their quality is anything better or worse. It's just that's where Night Force has a price point, and that's where they fall. So Night Force would be one to start with, and then I would go Vortex and get into some of their Razor line.
Mm-hmm.
And there again, you're going to be looking at $2 to $3 grand for an optic. And lastly, the Swamp Fox. Actually, that's what I am. I'm going to be running on my long range gun. Is one of the Swamp Fox Warhorse first focal planes, and that is extremely exciting to me. It's a 34-inch tube, and like light collection has a lot to do with when you get at range, you need more light collection. Which is what a bigger tube does. So the bigger the tube, the more light can bounce around and get to your eye, which is why, like, back in the day when I first started hunting and stuff like that, it was, everything had a 1-inch tube. And then you started going up in magnification from the old 3x9s and stuff like that. And then you went up into 30 millimeter tubes. And everybody went, "Oh man, that tube's so fat." And everyone screwed up what at least once what rings they bought. And
yep.
Everyone did it at least once. And then like to the point of I know Primary Arms sells a cantilever mount that is both. Like it has a shim kit to go from 30 mil. Yeah.
Oh, right.
So you can buy it, and it's, this will work for either one, dummy.
Yeah.
And
stupid proof it.
And now 34 millimeter is kind of the big thing. The other thing that you'll look at that is, so we've been talking a lot about like on the even the low, the LPVOs, 1 to 10, or like now we're talking like 6 to 24, 6 to 25. You're moving up in magnification. That's always what's at the ocular piece, the piece closest to you, not the objective lens at the end. So the objective lens at the end, which would generally be the big end of the scope, will be a lot larger. And that's where, like, Leupold at one time made one that had like a little hump in the bottom of it, so that would sit down on the barrel of a bolt action rifle. Like, you'll see them in 40 or 56 or 50, something like that. That's where that light gathers in to give you that low light to bounce around in that bigger tube.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I know deer hunting, it made a difference back in the day. You could quite noticeable actually at sundown. It was like you're looking pure daylight again once you look through your scope. So
Yep. So Garth, you missed out on some of this.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We talked quite a bit earlier, but we ran through what we ran. And what is your favorite competition optic while you're here before we?
Well, then, I'm a big promoter of the Swamp Fox, and I am a huge promoter of the One Times Blade, just because of the versatility of the drops. You have the 5, the 10, the 15 yard, and then your 25 or 50 yard zero. And so for competition, that's what I run on both my PCC and my 223. So just for those, IPSC targets that are 5 yards to 25 yards, no problem at all. So it just lets me do the shooting without doing math, which is nice.
Which is like the exact same thing that Tyler said.
Yep. We run the same gun.
We do.
I'm the oddball out here who apparently likes doing math in my head. Or
well, actually, I don't mind using a red dot, but I mean, it's just I always forget then about my drop, and so then instead of A zone hits, I'm hitting C. Or and it just, I would like to shoot A. I'm probably hitting D. So,
well, and Garth has seen me shoot sometimes at 3-gun and USPSA, and every now and then I have like a problem with timers, and I will just get a mind wipe, and then I turn into a bullet hose.
Yeah.
Everything gets shot, and it gets shot now. But no, like I said, we could do a whole show on Mills versus MOA, or getting into the long range stuff. But right now, I think we've done a pretty good job, Brett's just covering what it is that we all like to use. And it sounds like we all, we got 2 guys running the low power, the 1X prisms. Then, go straight up to LPVOs. And then red dots are always kind of around for other random things.
Yep.
And, depending upon what it is that you're doing, you have, a lot, because I'll be running red dots again on my PCCs, to include that super goofy one. I think will be a very interesting story and build, especially with what's going to end up on the end of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think that one's going to need to be suppressed too. So
yeah.
But there is one thing that you were talking about earlier, Tyler, that we would be remiss if we did not mention it. It is not my favorite optic of all time by any means.
Okay.
But you said something earlier and it made me go, you know what? We should at least mention it. There is an optic out there that, as you said before, you either run on, kind of 1 power or full power. It's generally how it works in LPVO. Very rarely do you work in the middle. There is one optic that is designed specifically for that.
Oh, we talking the Elcan?
Yes, we are. The Elcan Spectre.
I do like the Elk King. I'm glad you brought it up because I do have one, and I have it on my Scar 17. And yeah, this is pretty neat. It's again built like a brick shit house. You're looking at a $1,800 price tag if you get this thing, but yeah, it has a little throw lever on the bottom. Goes 1 to 4. Etched reticle, so it's etched for the different types of rounds. I got the one for the 7.62 by 51 on my Scar 17. It's kind of like the Vortex Razor line, where you can turn it on to have a red dot right at the center of the crosshairs, and then it does have night vision capabilities as well. So I really like it. The only reason I have one is I was able to pick one up at on a Brownells open box for like 50 cents on the dollar, which was a major score for me. And I do really, really like it. Now, at the same time, I still have to kind of, you got to flip that switch, right? And so you kind of, it on that big ass heavy gun. Sometimes it moves around on me a little bit when I reach forward to increase the magnification. But again, it kind of combines all the stuff you like. Easy to magnify and demagnify, etch reticle, night vision capabilities, and I can put it on a Scar 17 and know that it's not going to destroy it.
Yep, and I remembered you having one, but that was one where I figured it would be remiss if we didn't talk about it. It's not a super common. It's not a super common optic.
Oh, it's so damn expensive. That's why.
Well, you know why? You know why it's so expensive? Because it's Canadian.
Yeah. And you can. It does have a so just like the ACOG, it does have the ability to mount its own version of the RMR right up there. So you can if you want to do the same setup as the ACOG, where you leave it on 4 times magnification, put a red dot on top of it, and just lift your head up and down in between the two.
Well, that sounds good. You know what else is good? Patches.
Oh, patches. I wouldn't
Where my
drop
mind was
into
going,
that.
I'm like, I don't know if I can say it, but yes, patches.
Garth, where can we find patches?
Well, you can find patches at patriotpatch.co, guys. Go ahead and check them out. They have a great line of morale patches, pop culture patches. Patch of the month club is fantastic. Receive a patch every month. Their specialty patches. They have their cleaning pads / mouse pads. They are fantastic. I use one most of the time when I'm at my computer. Today I'm in my pickup, but so yeah, they have a great selection of stuff. So go check them out at patriotpatch.co.
Perfect. Tyler, where can they find us at?
Oh, if you want to email us directly with any questions, comments, future suggestions for the show, AR-15 podcast 2.0 at gmail.com. We are on YouTube now. We just started doing YouTube review videos. Check us out. We're trying to put those out periodically in addition to uploading the shows, AR-15 podcast, and then Instagram and Facebook as well at AR-15 podcast 2.0.
Yep. And again, everyone, if you have any questions, please send those in. We're going to try and get when we get enough questions sent into us, we are going to do a listener question episode. So, guys, get those questions sent in, and we'll do your best to answer them. They don't all have to be super nerdy technical questions because,
you want to know where babies come from? We'll tell you.
I will also tell you why 9mm doesn't work in a 45. But with that, guys, you got anything else to add before we...
No, I apologize for being late, but like I said, duty called, so glad I could sneak in here the last 10 minutes and be part of the conversation.
I see you got a little bit of black stuff on your face there.
Yeah, it was a little warm, but that's fine. Just a small fire. We're fine.
Yeah, I just say get out there, try different stuff. Don't be afraid to buy an optic, test it out. You can always go on taxswap.com and sell it later, trade it for something new.
You're gonna find what you like. You just gotta get out there, try it out, train with it, get your buddies. I mean, I steal Dooley's shit all the time. I think I've got a whole bunch of his stuff because he's not using it right now. And yeah, just get out there, see what you like.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Like if you walk up to somebody on the range and, oh man, is that a X? Yeah, it is. Can I look through it? Hell yeah. I have never told someone they couldn't look through one of my optics.
Yep. And if you want to shoot it, range etiquette is you give them some of your ammo or let them shoot your gun. Don't come up, mag dump somebody, and then just walk away. Had it done.
Exactly.
Fuck out of you. Happy to do it. Happy to let you try. Reciprocate.
Yes. Well, with that, you guys have anything to add tonight then?
No, I'm squared away. So.
No? All right. Well, you folks out there, you stay safe and stay armed.